Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Mathis with the Mathis Group. We're a premier ATP with the Project Management Institute. We've been training PMPs since 2006. Welcome to the video today entitled 7 Minutes to PMP Mastery. Today's video is going to talk about differences between verification and validation on the PMP test. So the overview today for the validation for the PMP exam, we're going to talk about define it. We're going to compare it to verification. We're going to give you some key exam ideas. We're going to show you some key concepts and give you a PMP exam style question at the end to be able to take a look at. So let's start with the definition of validation. Validation on the PMP exam is about confirming that a deliverable, requirement, product increment, or project outcome satisfies stakeholder needs and is acceptable for use. A simple way to remember validation compared to verification is verification asks the question, did we build it right? Validation asks the question, did we build the right thing? And so these two sound very similar a lot of times on the test questions. That's why you're seeing the video today. Validation challenges. For the PMP exam purposes, validation is not just testing, it is the broader act of confirming that the project output meets business needs, stakeholder expectations, acceptance criteria, requirements, and intended use. Sometimes when you're taking the test question, they talk about just testing about validation, and you'll have a tendency to think that that's it. That's the entire topic, and that's not it. It's much broader for the PMP test than what many of us maybe think. The PMI exam mindset for validation. Validation often appears near these ideas on the PMP exam. So a lot of times in the test question, they'll have some of these topics: acceptance criteria, accepted deliverables, customer or sponsor approval, requirements traceability, user acceptance testing, scope validation, product increment review, definition of done, demonstrations, inspections, reviews, and walkthroughs, benefits value realization. All of these topics have some and could have some type of question on validation for you. The project manager does not personally, though, approve the work on behalf of the customer. The project manager facilitates validation so that the proper stakeholder, product owner, sponsor, or customer can formally accept the deliverable. Validation is not something to postpone until the end if possible. That's a trick on the test. And PMI favors early, frequent validation because it prevents rework, misalignment, scope disputes, and late delivery that the team builds something that the customer does not want. And so you want to make sure that as you're looking at this, that you're not thinking that every project is going to hand something off to the customer at the end, because many of your agile projects are not. You're going to be giving something per iteration. Verification versus validation. So verification confirms compliance with specifications, requirements, standards, technical criteria. The system passed all the security tests. You'll see that kind of flavor on verification. On validation, it confirms the output satisfies business needs, stakeholder expectation. It's intended for the intent for use of that particular feature. Examples would be the customer confirms the system supports the actual workflow and accepts the release. And so verification compared to validation. On the PMP exam, the mindset for validation, one of the exam tricks sometimes is do not assume that because a deliverable passed internal quality testing, it has been validated by the customer. It could pass the internal testing, and yet the customer still says to the project manager or to the team, this isn't what I want. Validate scope in predictive projects. This is very common on the test. So in predictive project management, validation is closely associated with formal acceptance of completed deliverables. So the typical logic is requirements are documented, the scope baseline is approved, the work is performed, quality control checks the deliverables, the customer or sponsor validates the deliverable, and then accepted deliverables move towards the closure. So you'll notice here all the various steps under the typical logic when you're thinking about validating. So it's not a one step and we're validating everything. You're going to go through several steps before validation gets there. For the PMP exam, Deliverables should usually pass quality control before being submitted for formal customer acceptance. Control quality happens before we validate the scope. And so the team first checks if the deliverable is correct, complete, and compliant. Then the customer or sponsor confirms whether it is acceptable. Now, the reason for this is you're wanting to make sure that what you're showing the customer is going to work and is meeting the quality standards. So a deliverable is not accepted because the team finished it. It's accepted once the customer looks at it and says this is right. Validation in an Agile project. Agile projects experience validation frequently, interactively, and collaboratively. The product owner commonly accepts or rejects user stories based on agreed acceptance criteria. Stakeholders provide feedback during reviews, which influences product backlogs, sprints, and future releases. Do not send change requests from the customer through change control in Agile. Agile does not use change control like this because everybody's in the team. The customer has access to the team through the product owner. So do not fall for a change request in an Agile project. And do not close a project until acceptance. That customer has to be willing to validate this and accept that this is correct. So let's give you a PMP style question here. The question was a little long, so you'll see that it went off the bottom of the slide a little bit, but I think you're going to be able to read it fine. So a hybrid project's delivering a new customer service platform. The overall project has a fixed contract with milestone-based customer acceptance, but the development team is using 2-week sprints to build features. During a sprint review, several customer representatives say that a completed feature does not support an important reporting workflow. The product owner confirms that the user story met its acceptance criteria and the feature satisfies the current definition of done. However, the requested reporting workflow is not in the approved milestone scope. The customer representatives insist that the feature should not be considered complete until the workflow is added. What should the project manager do? First, let's look at A, direct the development team to add the reporting workflow in the next sprint because customer validation is more important than the current backlog order. B, ask the product owner to reject the user story because the customer representatives did not validate the feature during the sprint review. C, confirm that the completed feature meets the agreed acceptance criteria, capture the requested workflow as new feedback, and follow the project's backlog prioritization and change control approach for potential scope impact. And D, escalate the disagreement to the sponsor and request approval to close the milestone based on the owner's acceptance. Now, as you look at these, always be skeptical when it talks about escalating something. That's typically not going to be your best answer. And remember, you're always looking for the best answer, not necessarily just a right answer is what you're looking for. So see if you pick one of your answers here. All right, let's talk about that answer. So your best answer here was C. This is the best answer because the project is hybrid. And so the user story meets its acceptance criteria and definition of done, so the team should not automatically treat the completed story as defective. So what about A? Direct the development team to add the reporting workflow in the next sprint because customer validation is more important than the current backlog order. This is wrong because the project manager should not bypass the product owner. Remember, if it's hybrid, you've got Agile in there, so you've got a product owner, and the product owner is in charge of the backlog prioritization. B, ask the product owner to reject the user story because the customer representatives did not validate the feature during the sprint review. Well, this is wrong because the product owner confirmed that the story met its acceptance criteria and definition of done. So you automatically saw two different phrases there that should have caused you a little bit of problem when you were reading it. What about D? Escalate the disagreement to the sponsor and request approval to close the milestone based on the product owner's acceptance. This is wrong because escalation is premature. It's typically not your best answer on this test. All right, as we come to an end of this video, let me thank you so much for watching it. I hope it was beneficial for you. If I can help you, you've got my email address, my 800 number. We run virtual PMP boot camps every other month, and I teach those, and we've been training PMP since 2006. I'd love to work with your company and work with you, and so if I can help you in any way, just contact me. I hope you have a wonderful week, okay? Bye now.